Hey, how's it going, universe? It's Shaun from Zoobox again, and today we're going to be talking about the recently released on VOD Scoob. I guess the new iteration of Scooby Doo. Scooby Doo's been with us since the late 60s. They've constantly kind of reinvented Scooby Doo, sometimes more drastically than others, some creators having a better understanding of kind of the ethos of what makes Scooby Doo endearing, and we're going to talk about the new movie. Now, before we get into it, though, I want to provide a little context because this movie was not on my radar at all. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know when it was coming out. I don't think I even watched the trailer. But just by happenstance, my son, I have a almost 3-year old kid, he's been super into Scooby Doo for the past month. So we've been revisiting all like the old Scooby Doo's, like the 60s and late 60s and early 70s stuff up until stuff from 2012. Like we've just been inundated with Scooby Doo. We've even read a bunch of like comic books. Although, just as a sidebar, a worthwhile Scooby Doo cartoon if you have kids, and I wouldn't have thought this would have been the case, but Scooby Doo meets Batman Brave and the Bold came out in 2018. Super entertaining. It's a good Batman. It's a good goofy Batman story, and it's also like a good Scooby Doo mystery. So yeah, so we've been kind of watching all these old cartoons, and he actually responds the best to the original Scooby Doo. Where Are You? The original Hanna Barbera one, which is what I grew up with. I grew up um, at the dawn of Cartoon Network, and back in the day, they didn't have any original programming, so they were constantly just showing old cartoons, and Scooby Doo was in the rotation. So every night at like 7 o'clock, watch 2 episodes of Scooby Doo. It's a great time, great way to grow up, and they hold up really well even as an adult. They're like actually pretty entertaining. It's just a perfect distillation of like a certain kind of like spooky horror stuff. And they package it for kids, and they kind of throw in almost like a Hardy Boys or a Nancy Drew, the Boxcar Children type of like framing. That's kind of what the Mystery Inc. is, and they're super effective. It's reminded me like how there's some good spooky kid stuff, and this and Scooby Doo I think really strikes a nice balance between being like kind of funny, but also a little like scary. If you're a kid, some of that stuff's really scary. It uses like a lot of archetypal imagery, and it uses it pretty effectively. It's a really well made show, and I would say, going on into the future, it's the further iterations are hit or miss, more or less. Um, we dipped into a few of them. Like we were watching, I think there is one just called like Scooby Doo and the Mystery Inc. I don't know. I don't know. But even there is one. I think the 2012 show. It's on Netflix. I can't remember the name of it, but it's actually not bad. It's not as, I don't know, not as kind of just as straightforward and simple, and it doesn't reduce kind of the genres as well as the original did. But it's kind of more feels like more like Cthulhu esque, more like Lovecraftian horror type stuff in that iteration. It's actually not bad. If you got kids, it's not bad, and you like spooky stuff, it'd be worth checking out. So that brings us to Scoob. Oh my God, 2020's Scoob. This obviously originally was going to be released in the theater, and because of everything, they put it on VOD, as they are one to do, and released it into the world. And my kid super excited about just Scooby Doo in general. I mean, he's too young to really obviously understand, but just bringing up the page here for some information. And yeah, sorry, I got lost there. Not lost in my own mind. Oh, yeah. So we rented it. I wanted to check it out for him. It was just a cool new thing. See how he would respond to it. I'm trying to slowly getting to the age now where he has the attention span to almost watch a movie. That's why those old cartoons are great, because they're 22 minutes long, and there's not a lot of investment. And he watches one, he loves it, and then he moves on with his life. Although Scooby Doo, he's always asking for Scooby Doo. He really likes Scooby Doo, and we're also a big fan of Wonder Pets, the old Nick Jr. show. Yeah, we watch that a lot as well. I watch a lot of children's programming. Because now he's too self-aware. I can't just put on whatever I want around him. And I mean, we're pretty liberal parents, but there are lines. There are lines. I don't want my kid running around yelling, "Yo, fuck you, bang, 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 bang." I don't want that. So, just for the sake of not creating a monster, we scale it back a little. We don't watch Ichi the Killer, for instance, in front of our kid anymore. That was the movie where it clicked. I was like, "Oh, I'm uncomfortable because he's in the room. I guess we can't do this anymore." Anyway, so we're going to talk about 2020 Scoob. It's directed by Tony Cervone. It stars Will Forte, Mark Wahlberg, Jason Isaacs, Gina Rodriguez, Zac Efron, Amanda Seyfried, and many others. Ken Jeong, Tracy Morgan has an appearance in it. And what did I think in general of Scoob? I thought this movie was awful. It's not just a bad Scooby-Doo movie or a Scooby-Doo, I don't know, property. The way they deal with the property, it's just like a boring, bland, generic kids movie that is trying to appeal to the widest audience possible. So it tries to touch on like every cultural zeitgeisty thing that's going on right now. It has jokes that are just kind of the most shallow pop culture reference stuff. It's not smart. It's not well written. The characters, it's just could be anonymous. Like, it does not have to be a Scooby-Doo movie. It doesn't even feel like one. The gang itself is not even in the movie. Like, they're not together for the vast majority of the movie, because the vast majority of the movie is like a weird superhero origin story that is just boring. I was struggled to pay attention to this thing. It kept losing me because I would just be like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why do I care about any of this stuff? It does not, like, it tries to have this emotional through line, this emotional hook with Scooby and Shag. And Scooby and Shaggy. Why did I call him Shag? I guess because I'm cool and I do that and I give people nicknames. Okay, Scooby and Shag. Scoob and Shag. They're cool. They're cool dudes. And they want you to care about them. They want you to care about the development of the relationship. And they have like kind of that stereotypical, I don't know, just like, best friends, conflict. They kind of grow apart a little bit, only to come back together at the end and be like, no, we really are as good friends as we thought we were. And it's just, and that's fine. I mean, you got to think of it relative to a kid's movie, but I think even relative to a children's film, I think it's a bad one. And it's not what this is meant to do for Warner Brothers. They must have dumped a lot of money into this because this is a franchise builder. This is something, an extended universe builder. They want to do like the Hanna-Barbera universe. And they're using this as a way to do that. So they divine things in the plot, like portals to other dimensions and stuff like that, to specifically be able to bring in all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons kind of into the same thing, into the same world. So there's a lot of like cameos and references to other cartoons. What's the name of the villain? Dick Dastardly. Dick Dastardly's from like Funny Races or something like that. It's an old Hanna-Barbera cartoon. He's not like a Scooby-Doo villain. What I was hoping for, and it almost threatens to do this in the beginning, because in the beginning, the first 15 minutes when they're establishing the characters and they're establishing how they meet, because obviously we gotta fucking know that, gotta have a fucking origin story for Scooby-Doo and the gang. They do like a mini version of what you would find in an old episode, and it's actually pretty good. It's entertaining. And I don't know why they didn't just kind of do a back to basics story and just go that route and do like a spooky story. Do like go into like, take something like it's actually a pretty good kids movie. It takes something like Monster House, have that kind of vibe, but with Scooby-Doo. They didn't. It's just like, this could be anything. I felt like I was watching, I don't know, is it DreamWorks or Illumination Studios? Don't they do like the Despicable Me series, like Minions? That's what it felt like. It felt like more in line with that stuff. And I guess, I mean, this must be like market tested into the dirt, and they just have like a formula. They're like, it needs this, it needs this, and it needs this. That's what people respond to. That's what people spend money on. I'm assuming it has to be something like that. because I don't know why how you would organically come to this conclusion that this is what you should do with Scooby Doo. It was weird, and I know I'm a grown man. I have self awareness. I am a grown man, and I'm talking about a children's film. But I needed something to talk about today, and this is really the only other movie I've watched recently, other than the ones I've already talked about. So this is what happens. I should have just watched Mad Max Fury Road again. Should have just watched that with my son again. I'll let my son watch Mad Max Fury Road for sure, 100%. He's got to know what's gonna happen. Yeah, and I just wish it offered more. It's just so shallow and kind of just gross. It just feels like a commercial. It doesn't feel. I don't know what the right word is. It just doesn't feel like an organically conceived idea or story. It just feels so hack from almost the moment go. I mean, they do like, and I know, it's kids movies. They put little things for adults, little jokes for adults. Shaggy's like scrolling through his iPod or whatever, his phone or whatever, and he's like, picking these sad songs, and then what he ends up settling on is he listens to This American Life on NPR with Ira Glass, because that's like, a millennial joke. Great. Even like, the characters themselves, they're fine for the most part. I just didn't I didn't feel like they represented the actual characters very well, because they're doing like millennial versions of them. And in fairness to the actors and stuff, they're not really given much to work with. They don't take a lot of time building those relationships or the dynamics of those relationships, because like I said, they're separated for huge parts of the movie, for the most of the running time, if I remember correctly. That's why I had to do this today, and I had to get it out now, because I will forget about this by tomorrow. It's going to be completely gone from my memory. I only have so much space left, and I am not going to let Scoob sit on my memory shelf. Just not going to. Among the performances, so Will Forte took over as Shaggy, and I did not like his Shaggy at all. Didn't like it at all. I prefer, what's his name? The guy from SLC Punk. You know what I'm talking about, kid from Scream. He was Shaggy in the live action movies, and he was a pretty good Shaggy. And he did, from what I understand, I think he did animated versions, like did the voice for a bunch of stuff, and he was really good. I really liked him. This one, they were trying to go a little bit of a different direction, because they weren't trying to so much emulate like the old voices like they normally do in the cartoons. They're new. They're millennial. The millennial version. So Zac Efron sounds like fucking Zac Efron, and Velma sounds like Gina Rodriguez, and Mark Wahlberg, Blue Falcon, whatever. It's just Mark Wahlberg doing his like, what's going, like his his confused teacher voice, kind of like, it reminds me of The Happening. His performance in The Happening is what this performance is kind of like. But yeah, I mean, it's so forgettable, and I just don't understand why can't they just do like a back to basics? Because that stuff still works really well, and then you could have taken a chance and done something interesting, and it's just not. They just didn't. I don't know. And also this the guy who plays Scooby Doo, I think he's been like Scooby Doo a bunch of times. Or is he a new Scooby Doo? Yeah, he's done Scooby Doo. Scooby Doo is just like, I don't know. He's Scooby Doo. I didn't feel like the characters. And the reason, I guess, that maybe it was so noticeable to me, if I had had more distance and I hadn't just revisited all of like Scooby Doo media, inundated by Scooby Doo media for the past, month, like I said, maybe I wouldn't have noticed, and maybe it wouldn't have bothered me so much. I mean, I think fundamentally it's just a boring movie. It's just like a bad, mediocre kids movie. But to add insult to injury is like how much it does not understand or operate within like the rules, quote unquote, the rule set of what makes Scooby Doo Scooby Doo. So it kind of feels a little soulless in that way. Yeah, so I would say do save your $20. Do not pay $20 to watch this. If this shows up on Netflix or some streaming service that you have someday and your kid wants to watch it, go for it. But to go out of your way, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure your kids will beg you. Although nowadays, I don't even know how they market this stuff because kids aren't watching. Well, I guess kids are still watching TV. I was going to say. So that must have been commercials. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for me. That's enough rambling about Scooby Doo. I'm surprised that it evoked such a strong reaction. I wasn't really expecting that. Honestly, when I watched, I was looking forward to it. I was like, "Oh, cool! Maybe they did a cool new Scooby Doo movie." Because I had not seen the trailer. I went in completely blind. I didn't know anything about who made it, who wrote it, the actors. I had no clue. Just kind of went in as a blank slate, and super disappointed. It's a bad movie. It's a bad movie. You gotta ask for more from your kids' movies. You can't just accept the excuse. The excuse, oh, it's for kids. You gotta remember it's for kids. Like there are good kids' movies. It can be done. Like you don't need to. And what's even grosser if you say that about something like this, this is a fucking commercial. This is not even like they're not even trying to tell you an interesting story. This is just to sell you on the next thing to buy. That's what it is. And with that, I bid you adieu. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for listening. And we'll see you again tomorrow.